Well, hey everybody, how's it going? Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Friday Night Mike. It's Friday Night Mike. We got through the week and we're closing in on the game. Georgia, Tennessee, tomorrow at 3:30, a CBS game, and 20 or 21,000 people will be at the stadium. I know Tennessee fans think that 50 or 60,000 will be there. I believe Tennessee. I believe Georgia. I don't think they had too many people there. I do think, though, that the people that were there didn't socially distance in the students section. And who knows what's on tap for tomorrow, because it's going to be, I believe, a slobber knocker. I think the contact, the hits, the pads will be popping. All those cliches will absolutely apply to that football game tomorrow. I can't wait. So I'm going through here now, and I'm pulling out the betting line on all these other games because I want to pick the games with you before the end of tonight's broadcast, show, presentation, video, whatever you want to call it. You guys know I got to share it. You can help me with that as well. If we can get the shares going, get the audience built up. I've got a feeling we might see some Tennessee fans in here tonight. The Tennessee fans are confident. I did a 5 questions with the opposing beat writer with Austin Price, who works for VolQuest.com, and that's the rival site run by my buddy Brent Hubbs, who also works for the Tennessee Vols Network. And he told me that the Tennessee fans' confidence level was on the level of an 8 or 9, and that he felt like the team in the program was around a 7 or an 8. So there's a lot of confidence at Tennessee. Saw a stat tonight from Zach Reagan, a guy that does some things for A to Z in Nashville. Tennessee, the only SEC team that doesn't have a turnover. Listen, that's impressive. You know, if Tennessee doesn't beat themselves, that's step number 1 against Georgia. Don't beat yourself. Don't turn the ball over. Don't give Georgia a short field. There's a lot of different keys to this game. Kirby Smart went over some on his coaching show last night. First thing he was worried about, line of scrimmage. You know, Tennessee's got a really big line of scrimmage. 3 5-stars up there, right? You know about Cade Mays. Certainly all the Georgia players and fans know about Cade Mays. Trey Smith, you know, one of the leftover players from the previous regime. He was a 5-star, a must-have, best-in-state player. And then Wanya Morris, a kid that they got out of Georgia. Now, you talk to some people at Georgia, they say, well, Georgia pulled off on him. He's a 5-star player. Could he start at Georgia? Maybe, perhaps, at right tackle at the very least. I don't know why Georgia would pull off on him. I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But that's Georgia's story, and they're going to stick to it. So I think that line matchup is going to be interesting. So Cade Mays lined up against Malik Herring and Trayvon Walker, right? That's the matchup on one side. And then on the other side, the left tackle, Wanya Morris, he's going to get Azeez Ojulari, Jermaine Johnson, Nolan Smith. There's going to be some one-on-one battles on the perimeter. If Tennessee can run the ball effectively, this helps their offensive line dramatically. The most important thing to look at is an early gauge. If you're watching a game, you're trying to figure out who's going to do what. Look at what the teams do on first down. It's all about getting to second and manageable. Whether we're talking about Jim Chaney and his play-action game, or whether we're talking about Todd Monken and the air raid principles that he's introduced into Georgia's pro-style offense. When you see Georgia go 4-5 wide. Also, Georgia, Trey McKitty comes back this week. We're going to get our first look at Trey McKitty, I believe. The graduate transfer tight end from Florida State. Could he be this year's version of Lawrence Cager? A guy that comes from a program that had some quarterback issues, and we don't really know how good he is till he gets with a quarterback. And I think Stetson Bennett is a guy that can distribute the football. I really do. I feel Stetson has done well in this offense to this point. I think he's a good fit for what Monken wants to do, but I wonder about the arm strength, and I wonder how Jeremy Pruitt will combat that. If you're Jeremy Pruitt and you face a guy who doesn't have a strong arm, right, what do? You know, you challenge him to throw the deep ball, or you challenge him to throw the deep outs, or you challenge him to throw into coverage. Early on, I think we saw teams pressure Stetson Bennett. New guy back there, let's go get him. And Stetson Bennett showed them that, hey, I'm elusive enough to dodge you, and I'm smart enough to find my guy. So I wonder if Tennessee goes at this a little differently and says, you know what? Let's not blitz him. Let's stay back in coverage. let's make Stetson Bennett beat us with his arm. Let's make these receivers get open before we can get there. I think it's going to be very interesting. I think Jeremy Pruitt is going to try to take away the middle of the field and force Stetson Bennett to throw on the perimeter and throw over the top. And it could be big plays or it could be interceptions. I'm not real sure. I don't know. I'm not completely convinced that Tennessee has the defense to expose Stetson Bennett. I know they have some good players, but they lost some key pieces on their defensive line. They lost their best pass rusher. And I like what DeAndre Johnson's doing. And I like the Butler kid from North Carolina. But I'm not sure they've got the pass rush to get to Stetson without the benefit of a blitz. And if they blitz, I think Stetson has shown us that he can find the open guy. And he may not throw it, 60 miles an hour or even 54 like Jake Fromm, or maybe not even 50. But he can get it there, and he's an accurate thrower, and he makes good decisions. That's going to be interesting. Now, what Georgia does on offense is going to be somewhat predicated on what Georgia's doing on defense. And here's what I mean by that. If Tennessee is not able to move the ball, Georgia can be patient. Georgia can play field position football. They've got an All-American. I feel like Jake Camarda is one of the top 3 or 4 punters in the country. They'll play field position with you. I think Georgia feels good about their special teams and says, you know what? We'll wait you out. Georgia's not going to make that mistake, right? They're going to need to be pushed into a mistake. Tennessee is going to have to show that they can run the ball successfully on first down. That's the number one key in the game. First thing I'm looking for, can Tennessee line up and run into that Georgia defense? That Georgia defense was number 1 in the nation against the rush last year, and they're currently number 1 in the SEC against the run. Now, small sample size, right? They played an Auburn team that had 4 second-year offensive line starters, not very impressive. They played an uncelebrated Arkansas team, not known for having a great offensive line. Far and away, this will be the best offensive line that Georgia has faced to date. And don't want to say all season because Alabama's on deck. And I think Alabama's got a better offensive line and a better running back and a better quarterback and a better everything. But Tennessee is a good football team. Tennessee has made strides. Tennessee comes to Athens believing that they can win this football game. So let me go ahead and, like I said, I promised I would get these shares out of the way early. Got to get this, got to get the shares out. Got to have the story. The show has got to be seen. The show must go on. More options. Share to a group. All right. Talking. Here we go. One of these incredibly great headlines. Georgia, Tennessee, and SEC football. We're going to throw that "and" in there. Always enjoy talking about the different games. I saw that Jacksonville put out a press release. I don't know if you guys saw this. There will be no RV City, and the seating will be limited in Jacksonville for the game this year. We wondered about that. We saw that Florida had recently passed some provision where they can have as many people then. Well, Jacksonville's not going to. It's going to be limited seating, and the RV lot is going to be, the RV lots, they're going to be closed around the stadium. So it's not going to be your typical Jacksonville game. You guys know how I feel about it. I don't understand why Georgia's given that home game up this year to go to Jacksonville. This would have been a year I'd have said to Jacksonville, hey, we want out. And I know Georgia said, well, then we're worried Florida's going to do the same. Florida's not going to do the same thing. Because then Florida would be giving up money next year. But this is a year I would have punted the extra $2 or $3 million to play at home in Sanford Stadium against Florida. But that's not the decision that was made. And so the announcement came out that there's going to be limited attendance there in Jacksonville at that football game. That's way down the road. The only person thinking that far down the road is Brenton Cox. For those of you that saw it earlier this week, Brenton said it's going to be personal when Florida plays Georgia, because Brenton, of course, left the Georgia program, had a tough freshman year, had a tough spring, and transferred out and had to sit out a year. And now he's down there wearing the number 1 for the Gators. He earned that number 1 jersey. I think you got to give the kid a little credit. It's a fresh start for him. I was just a little surprised to see that he was so quick to want to throw something bulletin board material out there. Of course it's going to be personal. But did you really need to share that with the Georgia fans? Do you think you did yourself any favor? Probably not. I just know it's got to be tough being Brenton Cox and having to leave your home state and play somewhere else. So that's that. But first up is this game. And I've shared this story all around, so looking forward to some of the comments and questions that we're going to get. I have the betting lines here. I want to start with this game. This game, Georgia opened as a 14-point favorite, and the line actually went down to like 12.5. And what that means is more people were taking Tennessee and the points than were taking Georgia and given points. You always want to watch which way the line moves. And I always say go against the movement, because those guys in Las Vegas are counting on you being wrong. So if the general population is going one way, I like to go the other way. I liked the other way anyway. I made a prediction earlier this week with Brandon Adams, and I said 31-13. I thought that Georgia would win this football game. Now, I picked 31-13 based on those experts in Vegas, because they set the over-under at 43, and it would be easy just to say, well, just always bet the under with Georgia because they have a great defense. And I said, I need a score that's just over, because they can't always be the under. So I went with 31-13, so I was just over. And part of the reason why is because I think Jim Chaney is such a good play caller and offensive coordinator, and I think he probably has a better understanding of what George is doing than probably any other offensive coordinator in the SEC. Jim coached next to Kirby for 3 years. He was a part of that staff. He sat in on the meetings. I know he did scouts. He ran against him in practice. I think he knows a lot of the personnel. A lot of the guys that were there last year are back this year. Remember this. Tennessee led Georgia 14-13 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter last year. It was 14-13. Tennessee has played Georgia, even the year before. It was the only game that Jake Fromm didn't throw a touchdown pass in. I think Jeremy Pruitt can really scheme him up. I do. Do they have the personnel that can match Georgia's receivers? Do they have the personnel, like I said, that can challenge Stetson Bennett, the former walk-on and junior college player? What a great story Stetson Bennett is. I saw DJ Shockley tonight comment that Stetson Bennett's the guy until something happens. We just don't know what that something is. And how quick do they go to JT Daniels? Do they go to JT Daniels? He was cleared a week ago. I know that JT's got an NFL arm. I've heard some people talk about his numbers at Southern Cal. I said, look, the guy had 3 300-yard passing games. He was a true freshman who had 3 different offensive coordinators while he was out there. 3 different play callers in 1 season. Jared Garantano had 3 play callers in 3 seasons. JT Daniels had 3 in 1 season. He had a horrible center. If you go back and watch, the snaps it was kind of like the Arkansas game, only every game. There was a lot of excuses and reasons, right? But I'm buying in. I think JT Daniels is going to be the guy that puts the Georgia offense over the top. Now, when and how, I don't know that. Because right now, Stetson Bennett is doing just fine. And Stetson earned this opportunity. Stetson waited this out. Stetson came as a walk-on, paid his dues, didn't get an opportunity. He went to junior college, played great, led his team to a championship game at the junior college level. All he could do. Got a scholarship to come back rather than take a scholarship to Louisiana Lafayette. Georgia offered him to come back, sat behind Jake Fromm as the number 2 all of last year. And then when he had his opportunity, he made the most of it. He came in and played excellent on the road against Arkansas, really settled the team. And then against Auburn, he did enough to win. Now, his numbers weren't gigantic against Auburn. Let's not turn him into Paul Bunyan. I think he was, 17-28 for 240 yards. I mean, that's okay. That's 17-28, 240. Okay. It's not KJ Costello or Kyle Trask numbers. Now, does that mean JT Daniels will put up those numbers? I don't know. I don't know the extent of how much they throw. And I think a lot of it with Georgia is determined by the situation. If you're playing Auburn, a team that you could have given them another 4 quarters, they weren't going to score a touchdown. They weren't going to get in the end zone. That offensive line was horrible. They had 4 guys making their second starts. They were not going to move the ball with any type of consistency on Georgia. So knowing that, you can be very patient on offense. And we saw that, right? Georgia put up 24 points in the first half. You might as well have gone to bed, folks, because they only kicked a field goal in the second half. That's all they got was 3 points over the final 30 minutes. So it wasn't like this offense was unstoppable. We saw some good things. We saw the offensive line for Georgia play well against purportedly a good Auburn defense, not as good as last year. They lost a lot of key pieces. So do we think that the Tennessee front seven will be on par with Auburn's? I would say so. I think maybe a little bit better. I think the Tennessee secondary will be a little bit better. And I think Jeremy Pruitt will have a better game plan than Kevin Steele did. And Derek Ansley, the defensive coordinator. And not because Kevin Steele's not a good football coach, because he's an excellent coach. But Jeremy has more to work with now. Jeremy's seen 2 games. Kevin Steele saw 1, not even 1. He saw Stetson Bennett for a half of a game. Now, Jeremy's had a lot of time to look at the film. He's also getting some really good players back in his secondary. So I don't expect the Georgia offense to be quite as efficient as it was in the first half against Auburn, but I do think they'll have to play into the second half, and that's how I get them to 31 points. I think they kind of shut it down a little bit in the second half and got conservative. Kirby has a tendency to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that when you have a fantastic defense like Georgia does. The people that go, I don't know why they don't just keep throwing, because that's how you get beat. You keep throwing and you turn the ball over and you give the other team life and momentum. But if you're pounding it and you're moving it and it's 1 first down and 2 first downs and then punt and flip the field and the other team starts at their 20, their 30, their 15, they're not driving 70 or 80 or 90 yards on you. They're not going to do it. But if you turn it over at your own 35 because you want to throw and run the score up, now you give them a short field, next play, boom, over the top, or pass interference at the 3 and trick play, and all of a sudden the momentum's gone. Kirby Smart plays percentages. It's smart to do it. When you have a defense like Georgia's, there is no reason to be thrown in the fourth quarter when you're up by 3 touchdowns. There's just none, unless you just want the work in the reps, right? It's got to be high percentage passes, though. 25 series, 25 possessions teams have had against Georgia this year. 1 touchdown drive. 1 touchdown drive out of 25 drives. Now, again, Arkansas and Auburn, small sample size. Tennessee's got a better offensive line. Is Jared Garantano as good as Bo Nix? I think he could be. I think on his best day that he is. Jarrett was the #1 rated dual threat quarterback in the nation coming out of high school. This is the first time that Jared Garantano has had the same offensive coordinator for 2 years. That continuity, that ability to understand the offense can make a huge difference for a quarterback. You will see a better version of Jared Garantano this year than you saw last year. Now, the question for Tennessee, they lost 2 great receivers, Marquez Callaway and Juwan Jennings. These guys are in the NFL. They're big-time receivers. Do we think that Brandon Johnson and Josh Palmer can fill those shoes? I know both of these kids. They're great kids. They're hard workers. I don't know they've got the top side that we saw with Jennings and Callaway. And I think that's going to be key. Because if Tennessee can't win those one-on-one battles on the perimeter, that's going to enable Kirby to fill the box up and really try to neutralize that run game. Ty Chandler, another guy I got to know when I covered the Vols. I love this guy. His dad was a running back at Ole Miss for a bit before he got injured. Ty hits the hole hard, so does Eric Gray. These guys are going to hit the line at 100 miles an hour. Look for those collisions. Monty Rice, Quay Walker. Everybody remember Quay Walker? Them Tennessee fans have been calling for him. I heard some podcast, he doesn't play much. Well, actually, he does play a lot. He actually is 5th on the team in tackles. And he's 6'4" and 240. And you will see Quay Walker, number 25, enough times on your television screen. Quay Walker or Monty Rice, Nakobe Dean or Nate McBride. You're going to see some of those linebackers in the flats. Who's going to win those battles? I like Nakobe Dean in this game. I like number 17. Keep an eye on him. He's going to be very important. I think Nakobe Dean can make some plays, whether it's forcing fumbles or whether it's forcing turnovers in the flats. Does Tennessee have a tight end? Not really, okay? Maybe another area that Georgia can exploit. It's going to free somebody. I think Richard LeCounte, he's back. Remember, Richard LeCounte had 4 interceptions between the Baylor game and the Arkansas game. And he was headed for another big game when he got ejected for targeting in the first half. Kind of a weak call. You know, it was Richard's shoulder pad. Not really sure what he was supposed to do there. Just one of those tough scenarios. But LeCounte will be back. Lewis Seen playing well. Listen, this Georgia defense is special. But again, Jim Chaney's going to dial it up. He's going to do some things, okay? He's going to do some baiting. He's going to hang it out there. See this, Lanning? This is what you want to see, right? No, I'm doing that. He's going to fool them. Tennessee is going to have a big play. Mark my words. Tennessee will strike for a big play. Jim Chaney is good for 7 points on this defense. I'm going to get Tennessee in the end zone in my prediction, and then I give them 2 field goals. I give them 2 field goals on some type of special teams play that creates field position, and then another field goal late before Georgia makes it academic, I believe, with a big second half of the third quarter and fourth quarter. And I close my eyes, and that's what I see. I see a tight game for the first half. Some really interesting stats here. I need to pull them up for you. I should probably wait until I have them up before. Some really interesting stats here. Kirby Smart. Love these stats. The importance of a good start for Tennessee, we can't say it enough. Kirby Smart, when Georgia scores first, Kirby is 37-6. When the other team scores first against Georgia, he's 8-7. So if Tennessee scores first, historically, 50% chance the other team wins. Halftime score, thought this was interesting. When Kirby Smart is leading at the half, he's 39-3. Hard to come back on Georgia. It's a good football coach here. If Georgia is trailing or tied at the half, they're 7-9. If Tennessee takes the lead into the half, right? This is the historical numbers. Now, I don't think it's going to be quite that extreme now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Kirby has his guys here. This defense is much more complex than it was in year 1, 2, 3, or 4 because of that continuity that Georgia's had on the defensive huddle. These guys all speak the language. You have 8 of 11 starters back from last year's defense, which led the nation in scoring defense and run defense and was 3 in total defense and was 8 in pass efficiency. You've got 80% of the production back from what was the best defense in the country last year. And you might say, well, what about LSU? I'm going to say, Joe Burrow ain't running out that tunnel tomorrow at Sanford Stadium. And neither is Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jefferson or any of those other guys that are terrorizing the NFL right now. That was an unbelievable combination of players, and we really didn't see it coming. Let's just all say it. Nobody saw it coming. Could there be a team like that this year? Could it be Alabama? Not yet. Najee Harris is awful special. Jalen Waddle, pretty incredible. But hey, Georgia, one game at a time. If you slip up, if you turn the ball over, and you give Tennessee momentum, this could be trouble. I don't think Tennessee's got the guns to take it 4 quarters, but I think they got the guns to make it interesting and to maybe force a quarterback change. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to sell Stetson Bennett short. This guy continues to impress and play better than any of us thought he could play. And people say, oh, Mike, I heard you were down on him and you said he needed to be 3 inches taller and throw the ball 10 miles an hour faster. And I said, if he wants to play in the NFL and if he wants to impress me, then yeah. Otherwise, I'm reaching for the 5-star from USC when I get the chance, because I think he's the real deal as far as that upside. But who's playing good college football right now? Who has the team in the locker room? It's Stetson Bennett. So you stick with Stetson Bennett because he's got the momentum going and he's the little engine that could. He's a great story. Everybody likes the underdog, and Stetson Bennett is the underdog. He's waited a long time for this opportunity, and if anybody can appreciate that, it's Kirby Smart. So I was doing a story, I don't know how many of you were watching earlier this summer when I had Ray Goff on. That was a really cool show because Kirby Smart came on the show and surprised Ray Goff. Ray Goff was the coach that offered Kirby Smart the scholarship. What I didn't know was that it was a Tennessee Vol flipping from Georgia to Tennessee that opened up the scholarship for Kirby Smart. Did you know that? So I covered Tennessee the 98 season, and they obviously came to Georgia and beat Quincy Carter and Georgia handily, 22-3. It was the first sign that Tennessee might be a national champion. They'd gotten by Syracuse barely, controversial call late. They barely beat Florida in overtime on a missed field goal. And you nobody was talking about a national champion then. Everybody was still wiping their tears because Peyton Manning had left the year before and everybody thought Tennessee had missed their window because Manning was such an incredible quarterback and they couldn't beat Florida. And then came along T. Martin, who's now the receivers coach for Tennessee, ironically, and who was also, by the way, the offensive coordinator for JT Daniels 2 years ago. So what a small world we live in, right? But a lot of those guys that were on that Tennessee team were from Georgia. Cozy Coleman, the offensive guard, Deion Grant, that special gifted safety from Augusta, Jamal Lewis, who was powerful at the start of the year, ended up injuring his knee against Auburn, Fred White, strong safety from Griffith, Georgia, and Steve Johnson, a cornerback from Atlanta. Steve Johnson flipped on signing day, and that's what opened up the scholarship that Ray Goff gave to Kirby Smart. Now, Ray said, well, we got you on here anyway, Kirby. And Kirby's like, no, I didn't have a scholarship till Steve Johnson. And I'm thinking, man, do I feel old? Because I remember covering Steve Johnson. He was a pretty good little cornerback there for that national title team. But Tennessee wants back into Georgia so bad. I remember 3 years ago, I was covering an event at SunTrust Park. I don't know, it's probably not even called that anymore. Is it not Truist? I don't know what it's called now. And Tennessee was holding a big orange caravan stop in Atlanta. And I said to Philip Fulmer, I said, Coach, I'm really kind of surprised. I still call him Coach. I'm really kind of surprised that you guys are down here in Atlanta, out of state. He goes, out of state? What are you talking about, Mike? We consider Atlanta part of the state of Tennessee. And I had to laugh about it. And you think about it when you think about in-state recruiting, right? Atlanta's 3 hours from Knoxville. Memphis is 6.5 hours away. And so, yeah, Tennessee wants back into Atlanta, folks. Tennessee wants back into Georgia. They got 25 guys from Georgia on their roster right now. And you know what helps Tennessee sell? Victories. Jeremy Pruitt being able to point and say, we beat Kirby Smart in Georgia. This game tomorrow goes beyond the 3:30 p.m. kickoff. This game tomorrow ultimately could decide who's in control of the East in year 2, in year 3, or year 2022 and year 2023. This is a huge game. Georgia must win to defend their in-state recruiting turf. I repeat, Georgia must win this game to stay in control. This isn't one that can get away. You can't go, well, that one got away, we'll beat Florida. No. You don't want to use your mulligan on this one. If you lose this one, you can forget about a championship, all right? If Georgia loses to Tennessee, they're not championship material. Doesn't matter what happens. You could bring in Joe Montana, and it wouldn't make, well, Joe's a little old right now. You could bring in Patrick Mahomes next week, and you still wouldn't win a championship if you lose to Tennessee if you're Georgia. Must win game. Everything on the line. Kirby Smart said they've had good practices. Said the guys understand what they're up against. Time will tell. Let's look at some of these other games. Kentucky, -3 at home against Mississippi State. Kentucky, they're doing everything. They got to be like, wait a minute, I'm checking all the boxes here. I lead the SEC in rushing. I'm Kentucky. I've got the highest third down conversion rate in the country, but I'm 0-2. Well, that's because you're Kentucky, and you're only as good as your quarterback. Kentucky doesn't have a good enough quarterback, and they can only go so far. We saw it 2 years ago. I said they hit their limit. They had a 10-win season. They played that game with Georgia at Kroger Field with the SEC East on the line. Georgia knocked them out that day, and that was the end. And that's as high as Kentucky football is going to get, folks. It's basketball season in Kentucky. I can hear the balls bouncing right now in Rupp Arena. Football's over for Kentucky. Do they beat Mississippi State? Do they beat Mississippi State? Well, it's a tough one because, Mississippi State came out of the gate and just shocked LSU. Now, remember, LSU only had 6 returning stars, so they really shocked a lot of guys that had never really played, that had stood on the sidelines and clapped and let the confetti come down on their head while other people that played in the game were sweating and celebrated, right? So they played a lot of rookies, and they beat LSU, and they shocked them in a shootout. But as Steve Spurrier said, Barry Odom, the defensive coordinator at Arkansas, went to the film room. He said, you know what? We don't have to create the wheel here. We just need to find out who has had success against Mike Leach. And that team was the Washington Huskies. So Barry Odom went to the film vault, got out film and said, here's the defense that Washington used against Mike Leach. We're going to use it at Arkansas. It worked. So is it that simple? Is there a magic potion defense? We're going to find out. Because if Kentucky beats Mississippi State, then Mississippi State got problems. I can't even remember how I picked that game. I can't remember. I think I may have picked Kentucky to win that game because it's in Lexington. I think I did. I mean, and if it rains, just even more, right? If there's precipitation. Alabama minus 23 at Ole Miss. You know, I did a talk radio show this morning in Tuscaloosa, and it was hosted by Wimp and Barry Sanderson. And for those of you who don't remember, Wimp Sanderson coached Alabama basketball in the 1990s. And he does a radio show with his son. And he said, Mike, how come nobody's talking about Lane Kiffin and the way he left Tuscaloosa, how he basically got asked to leave? And I said, the same reason they're not talking about him in Knoxville, even though he got the team on 3 years of investigation that cost him some recruits and really pretty much put a black cloud over Derek Dooley's entire tenure there. Because everybody likes Lane. You know, yeah, he gets in trouble. Yeah, he's been irresponsible, but he's gotten second chances, third chances, but everybody likes Lane. He's funny on Twitter, right? He's good in front of a camera. Doesn't really matter what his track record is. Perception overtakes reality with Lane Kiffin. And this week he made the joke about everybody's got the same dad with Nick Saban. He said that he has a chat thread with Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart and I guess Will Muschamp. I thought that was interesting. I also think Alabama's going to cover that 23-point spread. I just don't think Ole Miss can stop anybody. And I think Alabama's defense will do all right. Auburn minus 18 at home against Arkansas. Boy, that's a lot. I just can't lay that many points. I think Auburn wins, but I think it's going to be close. LSU minus 18 at home against Missouri. I'm not sure what Missouri's got in the tank. They've had two pretty bad beatings now at the hands of Alabama and Tennessee, two physical games. And they're on the road. And LSU will get better as the season goes on. A lot of young guys. Florida's minus 7 at Texas A&M. I got A&M in the upset. I just do. Just a feeling, just a gut feeling that Jimbo pulls this one out. Florida due to lay an egg, maybe. I did think it was interesting that Kyle Trask, the Florida quarterback, is named after Kyle Field. Didn't know that. And we'll have a lot of relatives there. South Carolina at Vanderbilt minus 12. I like South Carolina to win but not cover. Man, does Will Muschamp need this win. Oh boy, if you're a South Carolina, you are really on the edge. Here's some stats on Jeremy Pruitt. Tennessee, under Jeremy Pruitt, 10-2 when Tennessee has a turnover margin of +1 or more. Jeremy Pruitt, 4-0 with a turnover margin of +2 or better. 7-0, really, because he's 3-0 with a turnover of +3 or more. So if Tennessee has a turnover margin of +2 or more, they're 7-0 under Jeremy Pruitt. And if they have any kind of advantage on the turnovers at all, they're 10-2. So that's pretty impressive. So the keys for tomorrow: don't turn the ball over, right? What's that weather going to do? Anybody got a weather report out there for me? Let me take a look here. See what your comments have to say tonight. Looks like everybody's behaving themselves. Excuse me. Boy, it has been a long week. I have done a lot of radio and television shows. Everybody wants to talk Georgia, Tennessee. It's great that this rivalry has come back alive again. Now, you know what hasn't been talked about? Is the black jerseys. Remember those black jerseys? Is there any chance that Kirby and Georgia break out the black jerseys tomorrow? See, I would say no, because Kirby Smart explained that he did a press release on the white and red jerseys because he didn't want his players distracted by him. And he wanted everybody to know so that by game time, nobody would be distracted. Now, maybe Kirby was just fooling us because he wanted to surprise us with the black jerseys. I don't know. If Georgia doesn't wear the black jerseys for Tennessee, what game should they wear them for? I guess they would have left Florida and Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. I mean, wearing black jerseys against Vanderbilt at Mississippi State, isn't that kind of anticlimactic? I mean, I would think you would have to wear them for Florida, right? Maybe not. I see Josiah Hurt tells me that good behavior is a relative term. It looks like I'm going to have fun going back through these comments tonight. Tim Oliver says, I don't think UGA respects you, T. Yes and no. Yes and no. I think it's a begrudging I think it's a begrudging respect. Remember, like I said, it was 14-13 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Tennessee was winning that game at Neyland Stadium last year. So I think so. I'm going to go with yes, they respect him. And that's a good thing if you're a Georgia fan, because you want Georgia to take this game serious. You can't overlook, I don't care what the spread is. Tennessee is coming in here to play physical. And I know that Auburn was supposed to, but they didn't, okay? Auburn had a few players step up, but Auburn had no vibe. Tennessee's got a vibe. They're putting out videos. My goodness, did you see the video Tennessee put out tonight of riding down here on the bus and Jeremy Pruitt talking about going to take it, no fear and all that? I mean, they're pulling out all the rah-rah stuff. It is, I mean, they're going all out. Jeremy is trying to he's in conquer mode right now because he understands beating Georgia would do. Tennessee's going all out. It's going to be a physical game, right? There's going to be some bodies on the field. I'm just saying. I'm not rooting for that. I never want to see anybody get hurt. But that game tomorrow is going to be a bloodletting, regardless of the score. Here we go. David Johnson said some of the best games I've attended. I agree. Kevin Lewis looking for Azeez Ojulari to get loose in the backfield. Could happen. I like Azeez a lot in this game. I think Azeez is special. Jason Howell says it ain't going to be close. Well, maybe in the end it's not going to be close, but Jason, I think early on it will be close. Early on. I think Tennessee is going to be able to move the football early on with Jim Chaney. Field goal on the opening drive for Tennessee. I'm going to give Tennessee a 3-0 lead tomorrow. How about that? I think by halftime, the Georgia lead will be 17-10. 17-10 at halftime. And then they pull away. 31-13. That's what I see. 31-13. What is your predictions? I haven't seen any predictions out here. I've seen a lot of comments. Brandon Seitcher says maybe another corner blitz. Well, Brandon, I think this time maybe Tennessee will be ready for that. Remember, that was a very young quarterback, Brian Maurer. Jarrett Garantano is not going to get punked like that. Jarrett Garantano is a wise veteran SEC quarterback. And Jarrett Garantano is not going to get sacked more than twice. He's going to get rid of the ball. He's going to call the right protections. Jarrett has grown up a lot. He's come a long way. He's a capable player. And I think his biggest problem now is that he doesn't have the receiving threats that he had a year ago. He's a better quarterback, but we've seen it before. We saw it with Jake Fromm last year. Quarterbacks can progress. Tennessee fans that are watching, you saw it with Casey Clausen between his sophomore year and junior and senior. Casey didn't get worse. Dante Stallworth and Kelly Washington and Jason Witten went away, right? And Jarrett lost Marquez Callaway and Juwan Jennings. And Brandon Johnson and Josh Palmer, I think these guys are adequate. I don't think that they're NFL draft picks right now. They've got some work to do to get that done. I think that Matthew Butler and DeAndre Johnson are above average SEC ends, but I don't think they're going in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Now, this Henry Toto guy, this linebacker, I'm impressed with this kid. I am impressed with this kid. What a player. What a player they have at the Mike linebacker. But he can't do it alone. And Georgia made some strides on that offensive line last week that were very important. They were paramount to success. All the talk this week has been about the Tennessee offensive line, and it's valid. They're very good. But the Georgia offensive line coming together last week against Auburn was one of the big developments that Georgia needed to become a national championship contender. That was one box I checked off. Okay, the offensive line, click. The backfield. You know, Zamir White, he's getting better. He's showing flashes, but he hasn't broke that home run yet. Could he do it tomorrow? Maybe. Going to need some blocking, but Zamir's got to shake some people. We'll see more Kenny McIntosh. That's a prediction. James Cook has been day-to-day. You need that joystick guy back there in the single back. Tennessee fans will recognize that as Alvin Kamara. When Georgia won here in 2016, Alvin Kamara had about 20 touches and almost 100 yards. I think he had 16 carries and 3 receptions. You know, Georgia needs that kind of single back guy. If you're going to run spread and some air raid principles, you need to have that guy you get the ball to in space. Cook was coming out. He looked really good last week, injured his shoulder. I think Kenny McIntosh could be ready. I want to see more Kendall Milton. You know, Kendall Milton was a guy that I questioned the entire offseason. I said, how good is the football in Northern California? And is he physical enough? And man, he decked that 285-pound Auburn guy, and I was like, holy moly, Kendall Milton. Now, I don't know if he's got top-end home run speed, but give me Kendall Milton near the goal line, because let me tell you, this kid, for being a freshman and having that kind of power, it was scary. I can see why he's here at Georgia now. Need to see that next great back if you're Georgia, though. Need to see that next dynamic home run hitter. Gurley, Michelle, Chubb, Swift. These are guys that could take it 50, 60, 70 yards. Need to have a guy back there that can do that for Georgia to evolve into a championship contender. It's a long season. That's the good news if you're a Georgia fan. This is a team that's going to evolve as the season goes forward. This is a big step. This is a big step. Getting by Tennessee, a loaded Tennessee team. What do we got here, guys? Catching more out of the backfield. That's right. John Adams points out Zamir White had a couple catches. And I like that shake on that little Texas angle route. That was nice. Look at Tim Oliver's got Tennessee winning 20-17 in a stunner. You know, like I said, I think Tennessee's going to keep it close. I just don't think they have the juice. And I don't know if they're going to get those players. You know, Jeremy's been there 3 years. He's had 3 recruiting classes. About 2/3 of these guys starting are Butch Jones recruits. So I know he recruited Eric Gray, but Jeremy needs to land some big-time skill players for his offense. I think Tennessee lacks that. And who is the next Tennessee quarterback? Is it Harrison Bailey? I don't know. Don't think we'll see the next Tennessee quarterback tomorrow, because I think on the road against this Georgia defense, you need a veteran back there that can call the protections. But will we see another Tennessee quarterback by the end of the year? I don't know. I think a team can only go as far as their quarterback, and unless they have a championship defense, which Georgia does. So I kind of contradicted myself there. I kind of caught myself there. I don't think, and I've said it, you know, the Stetson Bennett story is amazing. What he's done is incredible. But do I think that Georgia could beat Alabama with Stetson Bennett? I don't know that I do. Do I think Stetson Bennett can make it through an entire SEC season and win an SEC title game? I would probably bet against that. Could JT Daniels be the answer? Yeah, maybe. But what if he comes in and doesn't look good? Then what, right? So there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot that goes into Kirby Smart's logic. What about Dwan Mathis? Do you keep giving Dwan some snaps? This kid's got a big arm and a lot of talent. You got to keep him involved in your program, in your offense. There's a lot of teams out there that would like Dwan Mathis. So there's a lot to manage right now if you're Georgia. Trey McKitty, the tight end, I think you're going to see him get the ball. Darnell Washington, he's flashed from Las Vegas. Could be another big game for him. One thing that has to change, George Pickens only caught 2 balls against Auburn. You've got to get George Pickens involved. You cannot allow the other team to take your best offensive skill player out of the game. If you're Georgia, you got to get him the ball. Kirby was explaining some things happened that prevented that from happening. It just led Stetson to go somewhere else. There were a few times Georgia was the primary, and Stetson had to come off from either Georgia ran into somebody or coverage flipped or something, you know, weird happened. And Stetson did the right thing, and we saw Kearis Jackson with 9 catches for 147 yards, that slot. Just got to think Jeremy takes those slots and those inside receivers away and makes Stetson go to the top. I mean, to me, that's the crux of the game. Quarterback receiver combinations for both teams. That's what I think is going to decide it. So that's my take on it. That's my Friday Night Mike. I think we covered a lot of ground. We talked a lot about this game. 3:30 kickoff. There's a story up right now on DogNation.com that I think Tennessee and Georgia fans are going to want to read. Kirby Smart was asked about his favorite memory playing against Tennessee, and the response was hilarious. I'm just going to tell you. It was kind of sad almost because his favorite memory of beating Tennessee before he was a coach, I guarantee you none of you will know what his favorite memory of beating Tennessee was before he was a head coach. You will never guess. It's a great story. I'll have 4 keys in the morning. Kirby went over his game plan on his radio show. He identified 3 keys. I told you one of them, the line play. He had 2 more. We'll have a live blog tomorrow that will keep you updated throughout the game. I will do a halftime show from right here, from Football Central, and Brandon Adams tomorrow after the game with Terrence Edwards. And BA does a little bit before the game, so you're going to want to look for some Brandon Adams stuff on DogNation.com and right here on this Facebook page. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you've got some suggestions for me, throw it down here. Throw your suggestions down in your comments section. I always appreciate those. If you want to troll me on Twitter, I'm at Mike Griffith 32. I saw some tremendous insults this week. It seems like every time I go on the Paul Feinbaum show, it's an invitation for everybody to open fire and hit me up at Mike Griffith 32 on Twitter. And let me tell you, those Tennessee fans were ruthless. They said some of the meanest, orneriest, angriest stuff you've ever seen. There are even some Georgia fans out there that were mean. The Tennessee fans said, oh, you're all Georgia. And the Georgia fans said, oh, you're talking too much, Tennessee. I said, okay, I get it. I'm in the middle, guys. And as John Calipari once said, when we all came after him at his first SEC media days, you're shooting arrows through a bazooka-sized hole. So keep bringing it. I have fun with that. Every now and then I get my feelings hurt, but you got to be really creative if you're going to hurt my feelings. I'm just going to tell you, because I've seen most of the insults. At Mike Griffith 32 on Twitter, and in all seriousness, I get a lot of support, and I appreciate that. Positive feedback is appreciated. COVID-19 times, I don't get out much. I don't see many people, so the social media channels the volume is turned up because this is 98% of my interaction with COVID-19 going on, and I hope you folks are taking care of yourselves. And I hope that you guys are getting some positive interaction. I hope you're reaching out to your loved ones and your family and making the absolute most of this technology, the Zoom or the Teams on Microsoft, and visiting with your kids and your grandkids and your relatives and your sisters and your brothers. This is the time to be doing that right now. We had a lot of fun talking about football, but I always want to underscore that with the big picture. And the big picture is that sports, look, they just gave us 45 minutes tonight. We didn't talk about any politics. We didn't talk about any elections. We talked about sports, and we did it in the same little chat room, and it was great. And it was fun to get our minds off of it and all these things in the world, right? So I appreciate you guys joining me. I encourage you to continue a really healthy and positive weekend. Watch that game tomorrow. Enjoy it and be safe, all right? And I'll see you guys tomorrow at halftime. Have a great Friday night.